Hi, I'm Dan and welcome to Polar Currency video number 77. What's the first battleship note? Well, that's a good question. One of my currency collections is collecting notes with ocean liners on them, and it's a future video that I'm going to bore you with another day. But in my research for ships, I tripped across a few banknotes with contemporary battleships, and they're not what you think they're going to be. So I started going down that rabbit hole and discovered some very cool notes that have some great naval history. From the mid-1890s until the beginning of World War II, battleships projected strength, and if you had them, it meant you were a major power in the world. And since we're talking Navy, I'd like to dedicate this video to retired Navy Rob and his channel. And thank you, Rob, for your service. If you haven't checked out his channel, you're missing out on some great banknotes in history. All right, let's see what I discovered. Starting with the United States, because there's actually 3 notes, and you have to start with the Battleship Note, an all-time classic and highly collectible U.S. banknote that's ranked 22 in 100 Greatest American Currency Notes book by Q. David Bowers and David M. Sunman. The $2 Federal Reserve Banknote, or FRBN, came about as a result of the 1918 Pittman Act that removed and then melted down roughly 285 million silver dollars from the Treasury Vault to sell to Great Britain. England needed financial help to help pay for the cost of World War I, and U.S. made a tidy profit. How 1915 and 1918 large-size FRBNs came about are 2 different and fantastic stories. To learn more, see the link below for my video, What Are FRBNs? The star of the note, of course, is the reverse vignette of the $2 FRBN, giving the nickname the Battleship. Placing a battleship on a 1918 banknote was not a coincidence. The U.S. had just entered World War I in April of 1917, and there's nothing like putting one of the most powerful weapons in the world on your money to say, we mean business. The ship is believed to be the USS New York and one of the first 2 U.S. naval battleships to carry 14-inch guns. She was 573 feet long and commissioned in 1914 and served her country for the next 36 years in one manner or another. Near the end of World War I, the USS New York was sent to Europe to reinforce the British Grand Fleet in the North Sea. During World War II, the USS New York served as a convoy escort in the North Atlantic and saw her first combat action during Operation Torch, the invasion of North Africa in 1942. After serving as a training ship and other duties, she was transferred to the Pacific in 1945 and provided gun support for the invasions of Iwo Jima and Okinawa. After World War II, the USS New York was classified obsolete and selected to take part in the Operations Crossroads nuclear weapons test at Bikini Atoll in 1946. What's amazing is she survived both atomic explosions and then was studied for the effects of radiation for the next 2 years. She was eventually sunk as a target ship in 1948 off the coast of Hawaii. She received 3 battle stars for her service. And if you're into model building, or you're into sniffing model glue, no judgment here, you might be able to find a kit out there of the USS New York. The next U.S. note is the $10 Series 1902 National Banknote, Red Seal, Date Back, and Plain Back, which all have the same reverse vignette titled Liberty in Progress, which also has a battleship on the note, but with a bit more subtlety. Liberty is prominently standing in the middle, bearing a shield on her back and her arm resting on a fasces, a symbol of power and authority. She is striding what most likely represents the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, with a battleship on the left representing, of course, military power, and an ocean liner on the right representing industrial strength. The ship depicted is most likely a rendition of the Maine and Connecticut-class battleships that were being built and designed at the turn of the 20th century. You see, the United States had come of age in the late 1890s, and building a fleet of battleships was just the ticket to let the world know. President Theodore Roosevelt knew this and sent 16 battleships on a world tour from 1907 to 1909. The purpose of the tour was to make friendly, courtesy visits to ports around the world. And oh yeah, let everyone know that the U.S. was a major world power with all these cool battleships. The ships became known as the Great White Fleet. They were painted white because at the time that was the peacetime color of U.S. naval ships, and it helped keep them much cooler in the warmer climates. The last U.S. note, we have to fast forward a decade when the Panama Canal was completed in 1914, the same year of the first Federal Reserve note, FRN, that bear the same series date. These FRNs were originally backed by 40% gold and created thanks to the new Federal Reserve bank system enacted in 1913. The $50 series 1914 FRN reverse has the vignette titled Panama, advertising to the world the opening of the Great Canal. Very similar to the $10 series 1902 Nationals, Liberty is standing on the Isthmus of Panama, resting on a U.S. flag-draped pedestal, holding a caduceus in one hand, while resting her head on the other. She seems to have a very content look on her face and now is flanked by larger ships. Again, an ocean liner now on the left and a battleship on the right. Just like the series $10 1902 National Banknote reverse, both ships are meant to represent military power and industrial strength, only now add into the mix global economic power. Most likely the ship depicted is the New York class battleship that we saw on the $2 series 1918 FRBN. The United States, at least until 1899, holds the keys to world trade with the completion and total control of the Panama Canal. At the time, that meant cutting off 7,000 miles around South America and about 2 to 3 weeks of travel. That goes for both commercial and naval ships, and the U.S. didn't have to ask for permission to use it. Not to mention, World War I was raging with an estimated 1.4 million deaths just for 1914 alone. So a not-so-subtle vignette on the Series 1914 $50 FRN, it really does give a big statement. Now you know why Liberty looks so relaxed. She had control of the Western Hemisphere and had no need to get involved in a European war. Alright, we're going to rewind the clock back to the turn of the 20th century again with a what-if fun fact. In 1900, the U.S. Bureau of Engraving and Printing, the BEP, almost released the very first U.S. battleship note. I had no idea until I was searching for BEP engraving cards and came across the 1994 ANA Unfinished Masterpieces that shows a work in progress of a Series 1899 $10 silver certificate with a battleship. This note was intended to be issued with the Series 1899s, joining the Black Eagle, Mini Porthole, and Chief notes. I mean, think about how cool that would be. Quick note here, I have taken some creative Photoshop licensing from the unfinished BEP card and tried my best to fill in the blanks of the note. As you can see, there are areas that were not finalized. And just for fun, I added the serial numbers, the large blue Roman numeral, and the Treasury seal. The proposed center vignette was the battleship USS Massachusetts, one of the 3 Indiana-class pre-dreadnought battleships launched in 1893. The Massachusetts was 350 feet long and served in the Spanish-American War. She was one of the first modern battleships built by the United States Navy that compared to contemporary European battleships. The ships were commissioned in 1895 and 1896, but all of them became instantly obsolete when the first modern battleship, RMS Dreadnought, was commissioned by Great Britain's Royal Navy in 1906. All 3 Indiana-class battleships were quickly decommissioned in 1906, but later recommissioned to serve as training ships during World War I. The USS Massachusetts had a similar fate as the USS New York. She was used as an artillery practice target and in 1921 was sunk off the coast near Pensacola, Florida. In 2001, the wreck was added to the National Register of Historic Places and still serves as an artificial reef and diving spot. The left portrait is Commodore William Bainbridge, who served in the U.S. Navy from 1798 to 1833. During his long career, he captained several U.S. elite ships, including the USS Constitution. Bainbridge served in both Barbary Wars and the War of 1812, and has kind of become a forgotten hero, at least to me. But he's had 6 U.S. naval ships named after him in more places than the price of silver changes. The right portrait is Stephen Decatur, who at age 25 was the youngest person ever promoted to the rank of captain in the history of the United States Navy. He later rose to the rank of Commodore, serving from 1798 to 1820. Like Bainbridge, Decatur also served in both Barbary Wars and the War of 1812, and he also commanded the U.S. Constitution amongst many ships. His career was cut short Alexander Hamilton style when he died in a duel in 1820. Decatur made a brief appearance on the series 1878 and 1880 $20 silver certificates, but was replaced by former Secretary of the Treasury Daniel Manning, who died just in time to make the 1886 series. Yep, back in the day it always helps to die to get on currency. But the note didn't make it and was never issued because of the need to fulfill the Bland-Allison Act of February 28, 1878 requirement that stated exactly $322,539,016 of legal tender notes had to remain in circulation. By the way, this law sat on the books until 1994. You see, the Treasury was short on legal tenders and long on silver certificates. So the banknote was changed from silver certificate to legal tender note, and you know what? By now, this note should start to look familiar. The note's overall design was kept and just converted to the Series 1901 $10 legal tender, or as we know it today, the Bison note, one of the all-time classic collector banknotes. Besides the obvious of the Battleship becoming a Bison and Bainbridge and Decatur being replaced by Lewis and Clark, there were some minor changes. The financial obligation had to change from legal tender to silver certificate. These change types appear several times throughout the note with the change of the type. The allegorical figures flanking the portraits went from holding a trident, certainly referencing the nautical nature of the banknote, to holding a torch. And FYI, the reverse of the note had the exact same design except the silver certificate legal tender deal. You know me, I just can't leave it alone. I have to talk about the Bison in the room or China shop or whatever. So how did the center vignette go from a battleship to a Bison? Well, according to the back of the ANA BEP card, it was President Theodore Roosevelt's influence. He was concerned about the plight of the American Bison. That's all the BEP card basically states, even though there's no other information directly connecting Roosevelt to intervening on the note. Another theory is that the design was issued to generate interest in the upcoming 1905 Lewis and Clark Centennial and American Pacific Exposition commemorating the centennial of the historic 1804-1806 journey of exploration to evaluate the newly acquired Louisiana Purchase. It certainly has some feasibility because, of course, the U.S. Mint couldn't just issue one commemorative, but 3 $1 gold coins from 1903 to 1905. Woohoo! If you want more information on the $10 1901 Bison note, check out the link below to my video, Is This the First U.S. Commemorative Banknote? Well, here's where we go international with a scarce note that I've had my eye on for a while. In 1913, a charter bank in Canada decided to flex its own naval currency muscles by issuing their own battleship note. Like the US, Canadian paper money was issued in Canada by both federal and private financial institutions. I'm not a Canadian money expert. This is not what the video is about, and I can't even begin to cover the subject in a paragraph. With that said, my apologies to Canadian currency collectors. I'm keeping it really short and simple for us US folks. There were basically 4 types of banknotes issued in Canada with many varieties and subtypes. Provincial notes 1850 to 1866, Dominion of Canada currency 1870 to 1934, and Bank of Canada notes 1935 to date. What may be confusing is that Canada's federal government's official name to this day, by the way, is the Dominion of Canada, so you see that repeated several times. The 4th type of money was issued by private banks up until 1943. They were given the authority by an act of the Canadian Parliament to issue currency and referred to as charter banknotes. That's the type of currency that I'm showing today, a Canadian charter note issued by the Royal Bank of Canada. The front has the engraving of His Majesty's Canadian ship HMCS Bellerophon, a dreadnought battleship commissioned in 1909. The Bellerophon is named after a son of Poseidon, the Greek god of the sea, and was 526 feet long with a crew of about 700. She was armed with 10 12-inch guns, 3 along the center line and the remaining 2 as wing turrets. HMCS Bellerophon survived World War I, participating in the Battle of Jutland, which was arguably the largest naval battle in history. But outside of that, she has a fairly mundane career. To me, this note is magnificent, and I had to have it. I mean, the HMCS Bellerophon battleship taking center stage, the black on yellow overprint combined with a blue underprint back that contains what I say is micro printing behind the signatures that it just really stands out. The ship is flanked by beavers, one of the iconic symbols of Canada. To the left and right of the denomination rosettes are the British and Canadian flags alternating front to back. Below them is the maple leaf of Canada, their national symbol. The banknote was issued by the Royal Bank of Canada, again a private bank, and designed and printed by the American Banknote Company of Ottawa. I purchased this note on eBay, and what's funny is that my friend Dean from Basic Numismatics purchased the same note, with a higher grade of course, thanks Dean, from the same seller on the same day. Really a bizarre coincidence. The reverse is printed in that fabulous goldfish orange ink and very reminiscent of the large-size U.S. gold certificates. Smack in the center is the coat of arms of the United Kingdom. You have to remember the relationship between the UK and Canada. The galeche printing behind the 10 denominations, the detailed border engraving all wrapping the micro-printed background, they just all combine to just make a stunning banknote. I know this is not a high-grade note, but the value gets up there a little bit, and it still has some good eye appeal left. Next is the 100 mark 1910 Reichsbank note issued by Imperial Germany with red seals and serial numbers. A reprint was issued from 1918 to 1922, still dated 1910, but it has green seals and serial numbers. Both have the exact same design. The front has the typical language of banknotes of the time period. 100 marks on demand, the issuer is the Reichsbank of Germany, the date of issue, serial numbers, the counterfeiting penalty, and 9 signatures. 9! Now that's bureaucracy. The 2 figures flanking the center design area are the Roman gods Mercury, the god of commerce and communication on the left, and Ceres, the goddess of agriculture and motherhood, on the right atop the denomination in front of Germany's national eagle symbol that has origins dating back to the Holy Roman Empire. The detailed center underprint depicts Imperial Germany's crown jewels. The far left has the watermark panel that depicts Kaiser Wilhelm I and the denomination. He was the father of then current German King Wilhelm II, who reigned from 1888 until the fall of Imperial Germany at the armistice of World War I in 1918. The back has the vignette of Germania, a symbolic female representation of the German nation. She's basically the U.S. version of Liberty or Great Britain's Britannia. She's sitting holding a sword and bearing a shield in front of 2 solid oak trees. At her feet in the lower left are symbols of agriculture, engineering, science, industry, all symbolizing Germany's growing economic strength. And finally, we get to the battleships, all lined up representing Germany's military power in a world which at the time meant modern, powerful navies. It sends a clear message that Germany is ready to defend and fight what it needs to. Most likely, these ships represent the Deutschland class, a group of 5 pre-dreadnought battleships built for the Imperial Navy and, like the USS Massachusetts, were instantly rendered obsolete upon launch. But we're going to put them on a banknote anyways because they look cool. It's worth mentioning that 100 marks in 1910 was a large sum of money and roughly equaled the average worker's monthly wages. Post-World War I, these banknotes became worthless with the end of Imperial Germany, and at that point in time, the worst hyperinflation to affect the country. For collectors, these notes are easy to find and very inexpensive for such a large and beautifully designed banknote. Well, we're going to stay in Germany because she loved her Navy, and just 1 month after the end of World War I in December of 1918, the city of Emden, Prussia, issued a half-mark banknote called a Pfennig, basically a 50-cent banknote. This is considered a note geld banknote, and I'm not going to get into what note gelds are in this video because it would take 10 years. And you can agree that my videos are probably long enough already. There are tens of thousands of German note geld banknotes. But a quick and dirty explanation is at the end of World War I, the German Imperial government was collapsing and no longer had the ability to issue currency, and hard specie coin was being hoarded and disappearing from circulation, just like the US Civil War, by the way. So everyone and their brother, including cities, issued paper currency, mainly fractional notes, so commerce could function on a day-to-day basis. The word note geld basically translates to emergency money. The front of this note geld is pretty basic, with a detailed engraving of Emden City Hall, which was later bombed and destroyed during World War II. The new city town hall was rebuilt in the early 1960s and reflects some of the original architecture. In the upper right is the crest of the city of Emden. The printing quality is amazingly high and actually has a form of microtext incorporated into the background. Pretty impressive for a small city in Germany to issue this banknote. The reverse of the note depicts His Majesty's ship SMS Emden, a Dresden class of light cruisers built for the German Imperial Navy. Emden, city of Emden. Now you see why they issued the note. But technically, she's not a battleship. But it's my video and I'm going with it. Commissioned in 1909, she had a length of 388 feet and a crew of 361. She was armed with 10 10.5 centimeter cannons, along with 9 5-pounders, whatever that means, and 2 torpedo tubes. During World War I, the Emden was assigned to serve in the Pacific and Indian Oceans. She had a short but very impressive 5-month career in 1914. She assisted in capturing over 20 ships, along with sinking a Russian cruiser and a French destroyer. In November of 1914, an Australian light cruiser forced the Emden to run aground in the Koko Islands south of Indonesia, where she was shelled and quickly broken up by wave action and sank. 3 of the SMS Emden's 10.5 centimeter guns were removed from the wreck, and one is actually still displayed in Hyde Park in Sydney, Australia. For smaller size fractional banknotes of any kind, this engraving of the 1918-15 Fenning battleship is actually comparable in size to the US $2 FRBN and the $10 1913 Royal Bank of Canada charter note. I do have an honorable mention from the 1949 People's Republic of China 10,000 yuan note that depicts a naval ship. I couldn't find any information that specifically named the ship or vessel type. The Communist People's Republic of China Navy began with almost nothing in 1949, following their communist victory of the Chinese Civil War. In briefly reviewing the history, I'm guessing the engraving is a composite or rendering of the Chinese light cruiser Chungking, which was originally commissioned in 1937 as Great Britain's Royal Navy HMS Aurora, then sold to the Chinese national government in 1948 and renamed Chongqing. The ship was then bombed by the Communist People's Republic of China's Air Force, only to be scuttled by the nationalist government and then later salvaged by the winning communist government. Let me state I'm connecting dots here, and they're far apart because, again, the ship on the 10,000 yuan is not identified. It really is an interesting story playing musical chairs with a battleship. An interesting footnote about this banknote, it was the first issued by the newly founded People's Bank of China on December 1st, 1948, that was actually formed during the Chinese Civil War. It was issued to unify and replace various currencies of the communist-held territories, as well as the currency of the nationalist government that they were fighting. The notes were issued in 12 denominations with a total of 62 designs and were withdrawn from circulation in 1955. I have not purchased this note, and I don't know if I ever will. I learned about this note watching Numismatics with Benjamin, and he purchased it with a batch of Chinese banknotes for not a lot of money. I did let him know that this note, even in very fine to XF condition, is around $300. So it's not the cheapest note, so I'm still debating whether I will add this to my collection. But it certainly has a great story, and I thought it was worth mentioning. That's it for video number 77 and modern battleship notes that I was able to find. There's probably more out there that I couldn't identify, but I just really enjoy putting mini collections like this together. especially when the banknotes have a history and a story behind them. And it's always good to look for different ways to collect paper money that also connect to the notes that you already have in your collection. As always, I appreciate your time. Please take the time to subscribe to the channel, hit the thumbs up button, and feel free to leave a comment. We'll see you next time, and thanks for checking in.